The New York Post. Comedy Central pulls South Park episode mocking Charlie Kirk after assassination. I just want to say, I don't think they should. Many people are saying that they did it out of respect, considering the tragedy. It's not the first time they or other shows have done this. But I'll just say, Charlie was, he was excited by it. He changed his profile picture to Cartman. He had a cultural impact that mattered. And I thought he enjoyed it. They challenged his ideas. They mocked him. And that's what he was all about. Hey, right on. Thanks for joining in. We don't have the camera operating, but we do have your voice. So I appreciate you joining in with us. Tate's hanging out as well.
Howdy.
Yeah, so the latest news, it looks like this was based on the evidence recovered so far internally and confirmed by several news outlets, transgender, leftist, and Antifa ideology, which makes sense considering the responses that we've seen from activists, from people on the street. I'm curious, Connor, what your thoughts are. Obviously, you're from the UK, but I believe you knew Charlie. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, so I was actually very lucky enough to meet Charlie in May when he came over and visited and had a very busy schedule, debating demented leftists at Oxford and Cambridge Union, and appearing on GB News to talk about how he as an American was shocked that the nation that gave America so many of its founding ideals had fallen into somewhere between a failed Soviet state and an Islamic caliphate. And he brought up the example of Lucy Connolly, the 42-year-old mother who was imprisoned for over 30 months for an imprudent tweet during last summer's protests and riots, while sex offenders walk free in my country. And I had a sort of hour or so meeting with Charlie and I and a friend. And we were talking about how to replicate Trump's successful revolution over this side of the Atlantic, working on media ventures. And he asked me for some briefing notes about Lucy Connolly's case, which I sent over in an email to his team. And his team responded saying, it would be great next time we're over to get you guys on the show. It'd be really good to talk about your country. I know he was going to come back and hopefully do a UK tour of all these important conversations he was having on university campuses, because that's really what flipped a hell of a lot of states and Gen Z voters for Trump. It was Charlie Kirk being a voice for them, yep, and representing their concerns. And now we're never going to get to do that. And I when towards the end of the meeting, I did joke with him, saying, "Well, it's always nice to sit across from a future U.S. president." And I think we all kind of sensed that. Like, all of his closest friends seem to have sensed that too. And it is such a tragic loss, not just for his friends and his family. I mean, dear Lord, I can't even imagine how his kids are going to feel. But it's a tragic loss for the country, and also for my country, because we owe him a hell of a lot, because without his spotlight shone on our concerns, I don't think the Trump administration would know just how bad things have been over here.
Connor, can you maybe, as a Zoomer, walk the audience through what Charlie Kirk specifically meant for Zoomers and what his role was in our sort of matriculation into conservative thought?
The reaction that all of the Brit Zoomers had to seeing that horrific footage, and other than just praying that, was that we thought, he's one of ours and this could be one of us. At any time now, it just could be one of us. Charlie was obviously the largest target because, as you were mentioning earlier, guys, he was mocked on South Park and took it in good spirits. He was ridiculed just the other day by Van Jones. They're accusing him of being the true danger, the true face of white supremacy in America, rather than all of these random anti-white attacks that are going on, like against that poor Ukrainian girl. And so the great irony, though, is that despite him occupying being a bogeyman in the American left's mind, just because he was successful and polite and upstanding character, and it meant that they couldn't smear him as easily as some of the reprobates they like to use as bogeymen. The irony is that for quite a while he was used as the example of, he had founded Turning Point at 18 and quickly become a part of the Republican machine. He was the anti-Trump and then got on board the Trump train. He invited softer converts of, the I left, the left guys to turning point events. He was more on legal migration than illegal migration. And he was one of the main targets for the original Groyper War. Remember, when they were coming along and harassing him in Q&As to try and push him along. And that's why so many accounts today, whether they're anons, whether they're known faces, even Charlie's sort of harder-edged enemies on the right have said, yeah, you know what, we were kind of rough to him in all of our. We kind of gave him a hard time, but he was one of our guys. He was a patriot. He cared about the news, and they were only ever trying to jostle him along and make him a bit more on some of the issues. But we didn't want things to end up this way. And the fact that they were targeting, safe, clean-cut husband and father Charlie Kirk means that they ironically took out the lie that was interested in persuading them, in talking to them. I think John Doyle tweeted something like, you guys killed the last guy that actually wanted to change your mind. And so now, going forward, Charlie Kirk was the guy holding back the dam of Zoomer radicalism. You're not going to get any more Charlie Kirks after killing Charlie Kirk. You're going to get people that recognize that we are not in a mood for conversation anymore, because you can't and have open dialogue and discourse with people that just want to kill you.
So I saw a lot of the comments about, sorry, I'm just changing the subject here because I'm just looking into it, but a lot of comments about the ricochet, the spalling, and I understand what people are saying. Some people believe that based on some of the outlines in Charlie's shirt that he's not wearing a full standard vest, but he's wearing steel plates. It does look like it's possible, but I don't think so. And I'm just watching a few frames of the point of impact, which is particularly brutal. And people are making the argument that you can see his shirt moves and that they believe it was a ricochet from a steel plate. I still don't think so. If he was wearing a steel plate, it's tiny. It's this big. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. Just trying to understand what's going on. Connor, while we have you, we'll play this. We have a little bit of this footage. Of course, some of this. What's up? Some of this stuff I don't think YouTube would be too keen on. Extended footage of a fight at the Idaho Capitol after a man drove through the vigil on a scooter yelling "F Charlie Kirk." And there's not much to play, but that's several minutes long. I'm only going to play a little bit. They're beating the crap out of this guy.
Yeah.
So, look, Charlie was beloved by so many people. The people who worked with him, the people who worked with his team loved how above and beyond they would go for everybody else. Not to mention the people he inspired. The question now is, with the escalation of this leftist violence, a guy rode past screaming F Charlie Kirk, and a mob surrounded him and started beating the crap out of him. This rage is pent up and people are sick of it. Do you think that the death of Charlie Kirk could be some kind of catalyst that triggers the right, the left, or both?
I think that in order to stop any vigilante violence from breaking out, which is obviously undesirable because it just ends with more Charlie Kirks, the Trump administration needs to act now. Like, call it what you like. But Trump needs to go full Bukele. Like, as an example, Pink News, which is a trans activist news outlet, put out a tweet 5 hours ago that said, Charlie Kirk was discussing trans shooters' conspiracy moments before being shot. These people are dancing on his grave. They are denying the multiple transgender school shootings that have happened recently, the very thing that Charlie was discussing when he was killed, with the suggestion, of course, being that this shooter was a trans activist. And you cannot have a country. There are so many people that need to spend a very long time, possibly the rest of their life, in a mental institution. You don't need to be cruel. You don't need to be the left's boogeyman, but you have to contain this violence that people have been basically hypnotized into thinking that America is on the precipice of a genocidal fascist dictatorship, with figures like Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk being the faces of that. I don't know how it would operate under America's First Amendment, but you can't have CNN and MSNBC remain on the air and act like Radio Rwanda, inciting mentally ill people to go out and physically attack and even kill Trump supporters. I mean, Charlie Kirk needs to be the last martyr of MAGA. Like, we've already had Corey Comparator. They almost shot Steve Scalise. They had the kid a couple of years ago that was run over in an alley, and the guy said he was a radical Trump supporter. The guy was 18. He didn't even do anything to him. You'll remember the Antifa guy that shot the guy that got a Trumper over here in like 2020. We've had far too many examples of people just being gunned down because there are demented leftists in your country that think they're an existential threat to them and to these marginalized client groups like transgender and racial justice activists. Basically,
to clarify real quick, Connor, Steve Scalise, I think you meant to say they almost killed him. He was shot. I think he was shot several times, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And a long recovery. What I will just add real quick is I've looked at the video. It's very, very difficult to watch. There's several angles. Charlie's not wearing a vest. He's not. And I think the narrative that's being pushed that he was is, as I start looking through these, you see a handful of people just saying he was wearing a vest and it ricocheted. And then after a little while, you see leftist accounts saying it was staged to create Trump 2.0 and Charlie accidentally got hit by Spalling. The Spalling narrative is being pushed by the left to argue that they were trying to stage this to make Charlie look like they tried to kill him. That's ridiculous. This person shot and killed him. And after having watched that video, I am terrified of the radicalization and the powder keg that will erupt when the people who cared about Charlie and were fans of his see it. Because I really do think there's a big difference between hearing it and seeing that video. It is very difficult to watch, and I'm an asshole who talks about all of the videos that I watch and the news that I've witnessed and the things that I've seen, and that is very hard for me to look at. I can only imagine all of the people that he inspired around the world having to see what they did to this man, because that video is painful. It hurts.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the longest time, we anticipated if something like this were to happen to a titan of conservatism, that it would have sort of a demoralization effect, right? That it would force conservatives to put their heads down. But that's not the sense I was getting from my friends and family yesterday, speaking to them about the incident. They're filled with rage, quite frankly. I mean, they took out a titan. They took out someone that meant so much, especially to Zoomers, someone that, held their hand and guided them into these ideas that we cherish and we're fighting for today. And like Tim's alluding to, I mean, I don't think there was a demoralization that happened yesterday. I think there was. I think it opened.
It's going to be
a dark place.
But so Connor, in a couple days, there's going to be a massive event in the UK with many prominent conservative figures. What do you think? I mean, I kind of feel like this event is going to actually scare the left off, I hope, from any kind of escalation or violence. Curious your thoughts about what might happen this weekend.
I know a number of high-profile people on the British right who are now saying they won't go.
Wow.
Fearing security concerns.
Don't blame them.
Because, well, unlike in the States, we don't have armed guards. You have people in high-vis vests giving up their time to make sure that the women and children that will be attending this march know where the boundaries are to keep them at bay from the demented counter-protesters that undoubtedly the Met Police will bring to stand alongside. I mean, I was at March for Life last weekend, and we were stood in a road, a very narrow passage, and the pro-abortion protesters were given a vantage point to scream down at us. And then on the other side of them were hundreds of pro-Palestine protesters, who many of whom are being arrested, one of them who dumped ice cream over Billboard Chris's head. The police just put us right next to each other with very slim police presence given the number of people there. Now, if this rally that Robinson has organized brings out the number of people that they are expecting, it's going to bring out a hell of a lot of counter-protesters, and it's that there could well be violent elements who bring weapons and try to cause some sort of mass casualty or panic event. And I know there are lots of people who are just going now, and I'm not trying to discourage people from going, I'm really not, but I have just spoken to a handful of people who have just said, look, I can't go anymore because it's just too much. There
are reports that Ben Shapiro is canceling his college tour. We've seen on X reports that his whole tour is canceled, but in the press they've confirmed that I believe just the next couple are being canceled. Let me see if there's been any updates on this. And there's the question. So I've been reaching out to some. So the Wall Street Journal is saying it's been postponed. ABC says event at Reagan Library in Simi Valley is canceled. I'm reaching out to various personalities and conservatives for similar reasons, as you've mentioned, Connor, to see what their take is. And everybody is basically leaning towards cancellation. And I know the fear is that this is what the attack was intended to do. But the other fear is that this is a green light. This is a signal to the left that they have begun. And so, at least for now, the security risk is too great to be worth it.
Yeah, this is why Trump needs to ensure that this is not rewarded. This is why we are prudent enough not to turn to vigilante violence to avenge Charlie. Vengeance must come in the proper application of the state's monopoly on force. And so Trump needs to immediately prescribe Antifa as a terrorist organization. He needs to prescribe Black Lives Matter, considering literally the day before Charlie was killed, there was a leader of Black Lives Matter on social media saying black people have a right to violence. No, you don't. They need to. The Globalize the Intifada movement have already shot 2 people dead at an event in New York a few months ago. Just literally put all of these people that have called for violence or committed it, go retroactively back to the riots in 2020, throw them in cuffs, throw them in cells, and make sure that these people are not walking the streets and terrorizing law-abiding Americans again. Because you cannot have a country with people who, when you sit down to debate with them, they want to kill you. It is existential at this point.
We have an image the New York Post has posted of what appears to be the weapon. It is a all-black bolt-action rifle with a scope on it in a box. I'm just thinking about Trump's application of force as you've described it, and I think the sad reality is there's nothing you can do security-wise to make sure that these events will be safe. Charlie had the best security. I mean, he had the best. We do our events, and we have security guards, and I will say this of Charlie. When we were on stage at TPUSA, I don't think it was last year, but the year before, and I mentioned the two-way restrictions, the right to bear arms, and the venue we are in at AmFest does. I said, even this event, you're not allowed to bring weapons in. And Charlie immediately said, that's not us. That's the venue and the state restricting that. My view, perhaps naive and ignorant, was if I do an event and you have the right to bear arms, you have the right to bear arms, and I assume those risks by being on stage if people in the crowd are going to have weapons. But now, basically everyone's screaming in my ear, we can't do these events because even when we do, so basically what happens for us is our insurance company will not let us allow people to carry. They won't insure the event. The venue kicks us out instantly. So it's like if you want to do the event, you have to have the insurance. Otherwise, the venue just cancels on you. Even then, we just have a security guard do a quick pat down because we're like, it is what it is, right? Now it's just when we actually talk with the security teams, there's no event we can do where security is guaranteed, especially when you see a rooftop, rifle shot on Charlie. Even if Trump were to say we will begin cracking down, it won't change what is happening right now.
Yeah, it has made, I hesitate to say permanently, but at least for the interim, it has made everything much more low trust than it ever needed to be. And this is what happens when you have a culturally hostile, heterogeneous society. It's that where bonds of trust and loyalty once existed, militant state force needs to step in to keep the peace. And none of that is desirable. But without mass incarcerations, I actually don't see a way out for the US. I think the same is probably going to hold true in the UK, given the amount of state-sponsored communist groups and jihadist groups waiting in the wings to commit similar amounts of violence. Things have really gotten to the point now where it's like facing Roman Republic collapse levels in the States. And if Trump doesn't clamp down on this like we all want him to, I agree. I do fear that it's going to escalate to tit-for-tat violence, and we're going to see more of our guys, more of our friends killed. And that's after the last 24 hours of, seeing Charlie gunned down and having to hug my wife a little tighter. I don't want to see that happen to anyone else.
We're seeing from the left, not every single person, but there are many people posting the right will use this for an authoritarian takeover. And the argument that they're making is Trump will justify a power grab resulting in tyranny, and they have to resist it. So I fear that in the event, what we have right now with Trump deploying the National Guard, and so far it's been limited, and ICE raids, the left has already claimed they are being attacked, despite the fact this is just standard law enforcement that was voted for in a republic. If Trump does say we are going to clamp down on these escalation tactics and the violence, the left will just increase their response. I fear there's no exit ramp. The ideology and the worldview of the left in the United States and the right are so separated from each other. The left, they're cheering for this and then criticizing any efforts at law enforcement. I hate to be so pessimistic, that the next thing we're going to see is escalation, perhaps insurgent level violence.
Yeah, I've personally always been skeptical of any prediction of civil war in the United States. I just felt like the dynamics weren't there, the table wasn't set. But yesterday really did feel like a Rubicon moment. Yesterday did feel like that vision of this dark future kind of came into view. And I'd be lying if I said, okay, in addition to the anger and sadness I felt over the last 24 hours, there's a bit of worry creeping in now. Like Tim said, where is the off-ramp? I think we've passed our exit.
The conversations I've already had with my family and security is like a line was crossed yesterday. The targeting of a politician is terrifying, but many people have pointed out that, 10% of U.S. presidents have been shot or assassinated?
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. However, this was the targeting of a podcaster and activist. Mm-hmm. Charlie Kirk did not make policy. He did not dictate your life. He didn't work law enforcement. He held events where he talked to people and challenged them, and he was really good at it. That moment is when the left said, none of you are safe, and they intend for more. The statements that we are seeing from these people on social media, they've already sent the death threats that have come the way of all of us in this space. You just can't count them. Mm-hmm. You can't count them. We've got people on our team who, if I said their name, you'd say who? Getting death threats. Mm-hmm. No disrespect, but I'm talking to one of our crew, being like, how did they find you? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, Connor, look, I know you have a heart out here. Do you want to give any final thoughts and maybe where people can find you at?
Yeah, I don't. There's no need to do any plugs today, gents. I think I'd rather give all the honors to Charlie. But one final thing I will say is that my wife, who you guys both know, has been worried basically ever since she met me about the random and unprovoked violence that could befall any of us at any time. And one of the things I've kept asking my compadres over here in the UK is like, when did someone like Douglas Murray stop getting public transport? You know, no matter what you think of him, he's always tackled immigration and Islam and leftism, and that is the most violent and unpredictable constituency, the most savage bear you could poke. And so when did he stop getting the train or the tube so that he didn't end up like this poor Ukrainian girl that just got murdered? When did he stop doing open air events without security so that he didn't end up like Charlie? And at this point, like all of my friends are like, look, we can't even afford it, but anytime we come into London now, we need to get a private cab. We don't want to come into our major cities anymore. We just don't know when we could be next, and it's because we saw Charlie as one of our own. And I do think that he needs to be the last person whose blood is shed because the right is playing with one hand behind its back, fearing a leftist retaliation that has always been a provocation and always will. They are looking for an excuse to escalate. All you can do is be righteous and crack down on them as hard as possible. And I think the majority of law-abiding people will actually prefer a show of strength against these domestic terrorists than they will allowing this anarcho-tyranny to continue.
Well, Connor, thanks for joining us, calling in, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, God bless. And quick thing, Tim, I watched your solo show last night, and I know Charlie was your friend, and I could see how much it was affecting you, and I think you did it with the maximum amount of dignity possible.
I appreciate it.
I think he would have been happy. So,
appreciate it, man. Thanks for calling. I really do appreciate it. And I know this is like the millionth time I will say it. I want to explain that again. Charlie's not like a guy that I played golf with. I don't want people to think that, this is the dude that I called to go hang out at bars or anything like that. He was a friend in that. Text him a couple times, ask him what was going on. We'd DM, we'd work together on various projects, and he went above and beyond for me and my crew. Many of the people that work here at Timcast are much better friends with him and work directly with his team on a regular basis. And he just was in the work that we did, and when we crossed paths, which was not all that often, he went above and beyond. I'll just put it that way. You would not expect this in a business arrangement. This was a guy who, as I mentioned already, built us our own studio in his office that we could do our show in Arizona, that he paid to bring us out for, that he took care of everybody to make sure we were able to do it, who personally stayed to help us put this together. When all of his staff had left to go home, Charlie stayed and said, I'm going to help you guys get this going and make sure everything works for you. It was incredible. And it's an insanity that they did this. For now, for this live show, my friends, I know it's kind of everything's kind of up in the air. We're gonna wrap this portion of our main hour show for you guys. I'm gonna keep the live stream going because we have a little bit more for you, which I will just keep recording. We'll get the recording going. I'll do a quick another 15 minutes or so for you, but. For everybody who watched live, thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks for sticking with us in this news. Stephen Crowder, of course, is still live, and he's got the breaking news. He's got information. I recommend you check him out. And I'll just say, I was talking with the Rumble guys. Charlie made Rumble. Charlie was the guy. And, I was talking with Chris, the CEO, and he said that he sat down with Charlie. Charlie looked at him and said, "This is the HQ. Let's do this." And he was instrumental in the creation of this massive platform, this tremendous platform that allows us to communicate without having our voices silenced. He stood for free speech, not just his words, but also his work and his own personal money that he put into making sure we had this opportunity and everybody was able to share their ideas. And they had to silence him because he was right about all of it. And he was effective. Shout out to the Rumble crew, the Rumble morning lineup, to Stephen Crowder, to Russell Brand, Jeremy at the Quartering, everybody else. Thanks for hanging out. And we're gonna keep the stream going for now.